I'm called Lunogelo. I work for the Economic and Social Research Foundation, ESRF, in Dar es Salaam, Tanzania. ESRF is a policy research think tank, among the oldest, I think, in East Africa. Started in the early 1990s. I'm here today really to share my experience with the young researchers on how best to strategize so that we can influence policy making based on the work they do. Of course, it's a learning process. I'm also learning from them their anticipation and expectation when it comes to influencing policy. In a nutshell, what I wanted to say is that in any research, policy-related research, knowledge has a value chain. So you have to look at the upstream and downstream part of the value chain of that knowledge you are trying to generate through research. Meaning that as a researcher originating knowledge, you're trying to seek to new knowledge which you can influence the policy landscape. You have to understand who are the main stakeholders at the end of the day. You have middle-level type of stakeholders. At the end of the day, those who matters most will be the legislators. So from the end, of course, and the people who will be affected. So you have to bear in mind the end users and the agents who are going really to make that process happen. The legislators are responding to the needs of the people. But through those legislators, if you are not engaging them from start in terms of thinking how they are going to articulate that into a policy statement or legislation, you might come with a very good and excellent research paper with recommendation. But since there are some practical aspects of implementing, either formulating legislation or changing the whole policy of a country, then you will have missed the support of key stakeholders in that process. So you have a very nice document with a nice cover. Of course, among the academic world, you will be also renowned as a very famous academician or researcher, but really your research is not really bringing any impact to society because you have not involved all the key stakeholders in the process. So basically, thinking holistically as we plan research, as we formulate a research agenda, to think ahead on how they should also get involved in articulating the research agenda itself. An important aspect is that although we normally talk about research in general, in the real world there's what we would call supply-driven and demand-driven type of research. And in the ones which tend to make more immediate impact are the demand-driven type of research, which in the conventional way, you can't say it's research per se, because researchers in the traditional ways that we are supposed to think on our own, observe the world, and they come with a diagnosis that we think it needs a solution, and then formulate a research agenda, and then you proceed with that process. While in the real world, as a researcher, I think you are going to, we all face demand from clientele, and the clientele can range from government or private sector. In this case, for example, in my experience, I've had more rewarding work when it involves actually a demand-driven type of research agenda in terms of making things work better, from designing institutional frameworks for managing shared water resources, for example, whereby it's a combination of getting evidence from researchers, so that from that evidence and the recommendation you can come with a better institutional framework and legal framework. And the example of Lake Victoria, for example, it had to start with actually creating awareness among the stakeholders, and the key stakeholders are the policy makers. So the East African Community Secretariat had to started with the permanent secretaries and the ministers, took them to the Baltic Sea to see how the European countries actually sorted out the pollution of Baltic Sea. Now, once they have appreciated that it's possible, that the Lake Victoria problem, which is we are seeing there, it looks like insurmountable. But after learning through that process there, they said, okay, now can we assemble a team of experts who can work through this one? So that's how I came in. And for 2 years, we came with some solution on how we can do better. And at the end of the day, of course, there was an institutional framework, a Lake Victoria Basin Commission, which is still operating right now. But I can imagine if it was, we did not involve the higher level policy makers, I'm sure that document would have remained in the shelves until now. I think based on the experience, but during my mid-career, we had realized that if we do things on our own without really involving all key stakeholders, things don't move. So from start, we configured that we need to work through the solution involving higher level or senior government officials in the government of Kenya. So we had directors from research, extension, to see how best we can improve research and extension research linkage. And it's basically also coming with some more innovative ways on how what they call pluralistic extension system can operate in a country where we are all acknowledging the role of the private sector in the agriculture sector. For young researchers, I think it's important to understand that we need to support them on two fronts. Both the one where they have to work on supply-driven research, whereby they have to critically think, observe the society, how it's behaving, and come with a research agenda. But on the other side, we need also to train them that there are the world needs solutions, quick solutions most of the time, and therefore keeping them abreast of what is happening globally and nationally is critical, so that if you are called to work on a short first research agenda, you can come with some really feasible and realistic solution. But if you are green in everything because you have been burying yourself into books, but you don't really keep abreast with what's happening nationally or internationally, then it becomes everything becomes more academic rather than